Discover your inner goddess and live up to your highest value and most abundant potential. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses, a podcast that empowers you to unleash your inner goddess and take the leap of faith to live your best life. Your guide, Karen Pulver, joins her fellow goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Karen Pulver.
Welcome everyone to Grateful Goddesses, and thank you for joining us today. This is going to be a little bit different of a format, and I'm just so thrilled actually to have this opportunity to meet with our guest one-on-one. So first I'd like to read a quote. What is a goddess? A goddess is a person who is in the process of learning to know, accept, and love themselves on all levels, mind, body, and spirit. A person who, because they focus on personal growth and self-awareness, experiences a life increasingly filled with peace, love, joy, passion, and fun. A person that understands that they have unlimited capacity to make their life anything they want. A person who is inspired to give to those around them because of their sense of gratitude and abundance. I'm going to now be joined with our guest, Camille Kauer. She is host and CEO of the E-Spot with Camille. Welcome, Camille, to Grateful Goddesses.
Hi, I'm so grateful to be here with you today, Karen. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. And I'm so excited to have this one-on-one. It's going to be like a fun podcast to podcast. And you are so incredible in your shows. I was watching your shows. You've got such a nice rapport and you're so pretty in pink.
Thank you. It's become a thing. And so I just feel like I have to wear as much pink as possible now that I can get away with it.
Why not, right?
Yeah,
so I just read the quote, what is a goddess? And I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I loved it. I loved how it's just about embracing yourself and kind of owning your own power. When I think of goddess as well, I always think of kind of like warrior women, not so much do I think of always the feminine part of it. So I love that included the dichotomy of both of what women can be, as you can be strong, fierce warriors and still be cuddly pink, embrace our femininity. Like there's not, you don't have to choose with being a goddess.
I love that too. There's all these qualities of being passionate and strong, yet speaking your voice and speaking your truth and finding that inner goddess strength within you. It seems like you have really tapped into your passion. Can you talk about your journey with us today?
Absolutely. It's funny, from doing my show, I'm noticing that my path, it seems so like random and just happenstance, and just hearing from so many different people, that's sometimes just how it is, where you might have had a dream to go one way and life just doesn't want to play by your rules, or what's the saying, you make plans and God laughs. That's pretty much been my life from the beginning. I started in Europe. I was born here in America, but my parents were in the Air Force. So the first 11, 12 years of my life, basically, I grew up overseas, and I idolized America through TV. And that was my way to connect from where I was from, my culture, so to speak, in that sense, how I was related to being an American. And so when I would watch television, I always just imagined myself being those characters, living the luxurious American life that was portrayed on television there. And it just, I didn't necessarily think that's what I wanted to become one day, but I just loved the elegance of it all. We would get a lot of Diana Ross concert tapes, and I just remember thinking she was the most elegant, beautiful woman ever, and wanting to have that same grace and elegance as I got older. And so as I got older and my career kind of unfolded, there was a lot of hurdles I had to overcome, because I was raised in Europe. I had a very thick accent. So when I first moved to America, I had to go to ESL for classes, English as a second language classes, when I was put in the public school system in America. So that there was that part of having to overcome, because there's not many roles for Black women that have German accents, just in case you were wondering. So, I mean, I had to change. I had to like fit in more. I had to assimilate. And that was, it's funny, I ended up majoring in college, even in sociology, but my mom left, divorced my father and remarried here in America to a movie producer. And that's when the steps just even kind of unfolded even more, where I was able to get my first taste of what it was really like to work in entertainment and see my mom work stunts and my father, or technically stepfather, but he's my father, see just their work ethic, how films came about, the whole creative process, seeing how it was made and unfolded. I fell in love. Like, this is definitely the path for me. It just took a lot of hurdles to get there.
So you were an actress and model first,
Mm-hmm.
and then how did you get into the podcast world?
So about almost 4 years ago, I got empowered by the idea that men a lot of times will apply for jobs that they're not 100% fully qualified for or overly qualified for. And women, especially I think maybe even with Black women, we're always taught that we have to be twice as good to get the same job. So I always felt like I would read these different job descriptions, and just if I felt slightly short of, I just felt like I couldn't apply for it. So I started applying for jobs I always wanted. And one of those was being a talk show host. I had tried out as a teenager for MTV VJ. And so I was like,
Cool.
Another chance, like I was just, with the internet, you can just look up whatever and the world's at your fingertips. So it's like, why not? Let's see what options there are. And it was a remote option. So I did that first. I worked with 2 other women, and it was a lot of fun. We would chat about different issues that were going on in predominantly in Black women, like Black women issues, but we would still talk about politics and different things that were going on in the world. And I just loved it because since 2008, when my daughter was born, I've been working mainly in entertainment. So it was very freelance in that sense. Like, maybe I'd work every month, and then maybe I wouldn't work for a couple of months, but it'd be a couple of days here, a couple of days there. So I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom. And the idea of having a purpose and having a reason to know what was going on outside of the PTA and the different volunteer groups I was involved in, like, I felt like I had more control over my career again. Like, I didn't just have to wait for my agent or just like wait for production to film in North Carolina, because that was the other part of it too. During that time, we had HB2 law passed, which was the quote unquote bathroom bill. And a lot of different productions that were filming here left, and like even Marvel left because they were filming, like Iron Man 3 was the last film they filmed here, and they moved to Georgia, and we know what happened then. So I loved it. Like, when I started with that podcast, I absolutely loved it. And just every time another opportunity came up, I had to take it. And when the pandemic hit, I was working at a radio station doing the E-Spot there once a week, and had actually won an award for it, which I was really excited about. And 2 weeks after the party for the award, the pandemic hit. So it's like, okay, let's find another way to do this. And since I had worked before with the same platform I use now, I just did it from home. I relearned it because it had been a few years since I had used that platform, and 115 shows from home.
So impressive. Tell us, when I first met you and I heard that you host a podcast called the E-Spot, I'm sorry, but I thought the G-Spot. You got my attention, and I was like, the G-Spot, but it's the E-Spot. But I love
another
that name.
Thing hard to find. But it's made for women. No, I'm kidding. It's made for everyone.
Tell us about the name, and tell us about your show.
See, I'm so glad you asked, because not a lot of people ask me why I came up with the E-Spot. And so during those different hurdles, one of the things because a lot of times with creatives, you're not just interested in just one thing. Like, your brain just doesn't work that way. It splits off to millions of different things that you want to do. And sometimes you're limited by health reasons. So I was an esthetician and worked as a makeup artist as well. Like, that was kind of my other way in through the film industry. And I got carpal tunnel. I couldn't do it anymore. So that was another thing, but I always had this thought of having a fun name for a med spa would be the E spot, because it would be just for ladies, for them to get their aesthetics, facials, waxing, laser, med spas. Because I was a spa director in LA for Equinox, and I was a spa director here for Iatria Med Spa here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I was like, ooh, I could finally, yeah, I always wanted to do that carpal tunnel. So I was like, it could be entertainment, E for entertainment, or even for entrepreneurs, because I kind of expanded it for during the pandemic, because originally it was only entertainment. I would mention during the radio segment and do like a top 5 events that were happening in the Triangle area locally.
Right.
And so then when I was at home and there's no live events happening anymore, I was like, well, I'll bring on entrepreneurs to share skill sets that could possibly help us now entertainers who are kind of maneuvering, working from home, figuring out other ways to make money since the film industry had shut down and unemployment wasn't really including freelancers at first. So,
that word, that the buzzword right now is pivot. Right.
mm-hmm.
And I did the same thing with Grateful Goddesses, because I was all set to do gatherings here in Chicago, and I had different venues lined up, different guests, and then COVID. So I'm like, how am I going to do this? Now, this is really scary for me. I'm getting much more relaxed into it, but it's not scary for me to talk to people and connect with people. That I feel very comfortable with, or speaking in front of a group or a large, audience who's listening. But the tech part of it, I really I've been screw up on all that. And I had my daughters, who I love very much, initially doing some marketing because I wanted to spread out the message. I had to fire them. Sorry, girls, but they're just not cutting it. And so I'm looking for someone to do that. Help. What's that?
Sorry. I said it's hard to get good help these days.
It's hard to get good help. Family, I'll tell you. You can't live with them. You can't live without them. Anyways,
fair pay. Just kidding.
All of this is challenging, but I'm feeling so good every day for me personally that I'm getting over those little hurdles step by step. Did you find that for you, or did you just pick it up?
So the tech part, oh my gosh, I jokingly say that would be the death of me, is just the stressing over the tech stuff. Because I feel like we're in the same age bracket. I won't age you. You don't have to age me. I'm still trying to play younger. I'm kidding. So, but
we're not the soccer mom anymore.
No, the tech stuff. I was when I was in college, it was just really getting started, and MySpace was big when I was working. Oh no, Facebook was too. Actually, Facebook was too. Let me not make myself sound like a dinosaur in that sense. But I didn't know what an SEO was until maybe a couple of months ago. I thought it had something to do with CEOs. Thank you for admitting that.
No, I'm telling you, I've had people laugh at me besides my kids. Like, what do you mean you don't know this? What do you mean you don't know that? I'm like, I don't. And it's okay to say you don't and have it explained to you, because it's I'm a teacher too. And I'm like, there's never a stupid question.
And you never stop learning, right? Because what's the point of living life if you're not going to learn anything new or experience new experiences? So for me, I just, I joined a lot of different Facebook groups that had different, whether it was the platform I was using or different interest groups that I was interested in plugging into my show. I joined a lot of different groups like that to hear what they were doing, what they were using, what videos they might have suggested. And it became almost like we were helping each other. Anytime we found something new, I would share into the group, and it was, you take what you need, get what you can. Because one thing that's different than starting your podcast maybe a year ago, a year ago or earlier, is that a lot of things were sold out because everybody was using the same equipment for their Zoom meetings and for teachers and speaking events. So I had to let's find out what's the best no brand webcam for me to use, and what microphone was usable that I could get in a reasonable time. And so it's just, as I was able to afford things or find things, thank you for Best Buy's waitlist notifications. Shout out. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just generally saying it helped me out a couple of times. Yeah. But that helped me through it. But I think it was said great yesterday. Actually, you were there as well. Forgive me, I forget his last name, but his first name was Mark, where he said, gosh, what was it? It was like,
it was on Jeff Pulver's Conversations. Yeah, I was a
yes,
guest on the show with
exactly.
Mark. And what did he say?
He said something about don't get caught up with production value being perfect. Authenticity is more important. And that's exactly true. As long as you have good audio, semi-good lighting where they can see you, you're good to go. Like it's more important to get the message out there and get connected and just take a chance. So you feel that you're living in your purpose. You're doing something that's under your control. You figure it out. You love it, or you don't before you invest a lot of equipment and gear, because it can get very pricey very quickly if you're trying to buy the best everything and wait until you do this and get the perfect logo. And I don't even have a logo really, like everything I've made it all myself.
I noticed that and it's such good quality. I mean, you produce yourself, everything. I hired Podetize. They're an amazing company, and they
I've never heard of them.
They produce hundreds of podcasts, and for me, at least to start out, I felt like to connect with them, they're so personable. Alexandra Hazard is the go-to person. Thank you, Alexandra. She's been great. I've asked some really crazy questions to her where she's literally had to sit with me on Zoom and walk me through stuff, but like show me on split screen. But you know what? Now I know.
At least you have someone that's on the payroll to help you in that sense too. So they're generally going to help you at your time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here, like, randomly Googling, hoping I get the right, because that's the other part of things. And it's been a teachable moment, even with my daughter, in the sense that there's a lot of people putting content out there that's complete BS. Like, it doesn't work. It's not true. You don't want to buy those products. They're just promoting affiliate links just to get the commission off of it. Like, you just don't really know that what you're looking for is legit or that it's quality and it's not just a money grab. So you can trust that source in that sense. So that's important too.
On the show, and we'll do this a little later, to talk about our favorite things. With the featured goddesses, I always say, it's okay, I'll give you time to get it.
Okay.
Or talk about it. But we talk about our favorite things, and I say to the featured goddesses, and for myself, it can be a ritual, color, anything. It can be a product, but I said to them, please don't just promote your best friend's new merchandise. Like, it has to be something that you really enjoy, because I don't want the listeners to just go out and get something that they don't really enjoy. So one of our guests talked about dry brushing and how much she loves it. I've never done it. Good. So I invested in it, and I love it.
So simple and easy. I'm glad you brought it up, because I've been meaning to buy. I've been buying a lot of spa stuff lately.
It feels so good. I've never done it, but something like that is something I never, I could have looked it up online and found out, but to hear firsthand about how it works and what she likes about it.
Circulation of it all.
And look, the listeners don't have to go out and get these products, but if they hear from us like these great, reviews of them, that we truly love this product, then why not? But yeah, I hear you. It's got to be authentic. And on my show, I'm nervous about exposing a lot of vulnerabilities I have, but people know that I had cancer, that I've gone through depression, that I've gone through anxiety, I've had marital counseling. I mean, these are things that I think are really important to share, because you can see the journey and you can see that it's okay, it's temporary, right? And steps and things that we're doing to help. So I love your authenticity on the show. You shine right through, with your guests, and it's so much fun to listen and to watch. Can you talk about a guest that you've had that you feel has been really inspiring? And there's so many, right?
Right. Well, I mean, my head always goes to the same person each time, just because it was just so unexpected. Okay. Of course, because I've had family members on, they're definitely my favorites and love them the most. But Marcellus Reynolds, I had on as a guest. He's the author of the Supremes Models book, Iconic Black Women in Fashion. And he did this book where it was like it was a love letter and history of how Black women were able to make it into modeling industry and able to get those iconic beauty standard roles, which was very hard to get. Like I didn't really understand the depths of how hard that had to be at their time frame, because it's still hard now even, but just to think of it and have all those pictures that he had and so on. But in the interview, I was prepared for that kind of a conversation. And then he surprised me with something that was just so vulnerable. He started crying even when he was sharing the story. And I was trying my best because I'm like, I'm not the Barbara Walters type. This is not what we come here for, but at the same time, it's one of those things he said, he never talked about it publicly. This is something that's been, because of everything going on, he felt comfortable with sharing. And I mean, I felt amazing that he felt so comfortable to share that with me. And I definitely felt a lot of like pride in that, but also just felt like I had to keep it too. Like I didn't want to exploit it and because I could have very easily like edited that part and shared it to social media but that's a lot more technical work for me to do. And I listen to that show all the time because it just gives me so much, like, a lot of times when you're doing things in the creative space, you don't always feel that support, whether it's financial or encouragement, because you're like, am I doing this? Are people really resonating? Is this working? But just hearing and having that conversation with him and getting to have that connection with him, because I didn't know him before I interviewed him. He was just someone I had looked up to and idolized. I'd been following him on Instagram for years. And when he finally followed me back, I went in for the, I was like, hey, started messaging him. And just when this opportunity to have my own show, I had to have him on. And the fact that he's been on twice and has said he'd come back anytime, anywhere. And so I've been harassing him since Fashion Week is coming up, but whatever. But that would probably be the one, because it was just, it gives me on a regular basis the feeling of, if nothing else, maybe I've opened the door that maybe he can reach out to his homophobic family members and maybe they can bridge and things can change. Because that's just, at times like this, like it's something so polarizing that shouldn't be, like that's your family. I think about them all the time and think that how wonderful it would be if they could bridge together, but at the same time, toxic family, whether they're blood or not, they got to go. So
we can talk about family, but actually the difficult conversation of social injustice and what's happening in our world right now. This is being recorded early September, but all summer long, it's always been there. It's just coming out to the forefront. And if you're comfortable, I'd like to have a little discussion about that. The podcast that's being aired today on Grateful Goddesses is actually with millennial Ella St. Hilaire, and she has a company, a new platform called Bedrock Body. If you haven't joined up, it's amazing. So she is giving some courses on how to build that bridge, like between, and have these uncomfortable conversations, but to make them, really sustainable and taking action towards what we can do, along with bringing awareness. So I'm curious though about what's going on in your head and what's happening with you. You are a Black woman, you have a daughter. What is going on in your life right now with what's going on in the world?
It's very interesting because I also have a white husband. So I kind of get a firsthand view sometimes of systemic racism, because I'll see how differently he gets treated compared to me, as opposed to when I was dating someone of the same race, where I, as the woman, would obviously be treated better. And so it's just like to see that firsthand, or even with everything that's happened lately with the police issues, the political issue. I mean, just all of it. It's been very overwhelming, but it's also felt like a purge in a way where all of these feelings that I was having, thinking it was me, maybe I did something, maybe I have RBF, like something I had done to deserve that treatment, that it had something to do with myself. And considering that so many women and men were coming out saying the exact same story I had. And I have to admit, like, I grew up very privileged. I went to private schools. I had tutors. I had a white nanny, full disclosure. And I had an Asian one too. But needless to say, I'm just saying in the sense that there isn't a protection from it. Like, it doesn't matter how nice you are sometimes to a police officer, or how nice you are to people, or how far in society you build yourself up to, living in nice homes, nice areas, that just could put a bigger target on your back. Like, why are you here? You don't deserve to be here. Or I felt obligated, because I was a stay-at-home mom and had the freedom to go and volunteer, that I had to represent for all the Black kids and people of color at my daughter's school, because there was so few. I would volunteer for everything I could to make sure I was there. And I got involved, of course, with ESL, because that always had a special place in my heart for my own experience of being told I couldn't be an American unless I only spoke English. So I lost my language that I used to speak, which was Turkish. And with a little Dutch here and there, but for the most part Turkish. And it was heart-wrenching to know that it was not just living in the South type of thing, because I felt like in LA, I didn't ever experience that. And I had, because of my parents' profession, I went to 26 different schools. And yeah, about half of those, I was probably the only Black student in. And even in college, I was the only Black girl in my dorm for my first year and a half of school. And I finally dropped out because I couldn't take it anymore. But I mean, those are the experiences that, like, looking back
you couldn't take school, or you couldn't take the
racism. I couldn't take the racism anymore. Wow. Like, I couldn't. I had a professor tell me to my face she would never pass an N-word. I had different students say things to me on a regular basis, and it was just me. So it was like, I couldn't fight everyone. I couldn't argue, like I wasn't going to. I didn't want to play up to the stereotype of being an angry Black woman either, or speaking up for myself. It's funny, when my husband and I were dating, he was working in real estate, and his coworker had mentioned to him how he hated renting to Black folks because they would always complain so much about different things. And I was like, well, if your place is up to par, they won't complain, but it made me even more scared of having that same stereotype of like, oh, if something's done wrong to me, if I complain, they'll just assume that's a Black thing and not really take it at face value. So there's a lot of insecurities that came with that. And it was just very heavy to unpack all of that. So that's like the purging of it all. Like, it's not me, and it gave me, and it's funny because a lot of people lately have been saying to me how I just have this energy about me and that I'm resonate and all these different things. And it's weird because before I would get that, oh, you look standoffish or RBF. And it was just like, is it me or them? And so now I'm wondering if just not having to carry all those bricks of the different things people had said to me, and feeling the weight of, oh, I can't complain, I can't say anything, I can't speak up for myself, I can't negotiate for higher rates for myself than my coworkers that are doing the exact same job. Now I feel like, okay, the world is listening. They see now that it's different. There's proof, there's papers, there's 15% challenge there, like the grocery stores are now carrying more ethnic hair products and skincare, like they're trying to accommodate the rest of the Americans, not just the white Americans. So it's nice to feel.
Some people are not listening.
No. Yeah, of course. And those are probably the loudest.
But there is an awakening. I too had mentioned that on a previous show, and it's hard to say, but I've been, educating and listening, and I realized, and I want to say this in the right way so it's people understand, that when I was younger, I was actually racist. I wasn't actively racist, but like I wasn't going out and, actively feeling this way, but I was brought up in a way that when I look back, it was racist because I was, in a school where I remember singing at recess a song, jump rope to a song, and it actually had the N word in it. And I remember singing and like thinking it wasn't anything. And then it was changed like later on. And I thought, oh, okay, I get it. Like what I'm saying is there were things that I did that I learned just being a white girl. Does this make sense? Like that I
No,
really
100%.
I had no idea we're racist.
But it's not just you. I mean, it was that's the whole thing about systemic racism. Too. We all were part of the machine. We all fed into it. We all ignored it or just assumed that's just the way it's to be.
I just assumed. And as I got older, I realized, wait, this isn't, I remember at my public school, there was a whole big thing about there were kids being bussed in, right? And there was this whole big thing about these kids. And I realized at the time, these kids are Black, and that's the whole big thing. It's not about the extra kids at the school. And I remember white women, like housewives, coming to the school and being really upset about it. And as like, a 10, 11-year-old sitting there thinking like, well, I'm friends with this girl. Like, what's wrong with her?
Right.
What do you mean she's Black? Like I saw she was Black, but it's like, what's that? Why is that bad? Like, so, but we didn't have conversations about it. Right. My parents did. Don't get me wrong. They talked about it. We were very open in conversations, but in school, it was just this underlying racist attitude that I'm ashamed to say, but I grew up that way. But now I'm being, like you said, everyone's kind of purging and understanding, and we're having these conversations. And it's really important to re-examine who we are, what our beliefs are, what things that are ingrained in us that we grew up with, and tackling that and dismantling that.
And I'm loving that. And at the same time, because I had the same, I don't know that jump rope song, but I'm sure there's things I grew up with too that was inappropriate, or because I always think of it about, because I'm in an interracial marriage, with gay marriage, a lot of the excuses they use towards gay marriage, the same excuses they used to use towards interracial marriage. Right. And so I just think about having grown up somewhat religious in the sense where you're always taught about there's no Adam and Steve or whatever, those kinds of dumb things that were taught to us as kids or teenagers, whatever. And now we know better, we do better, right? So it's the same thing with racism, but it was on such a larger scale. Just thinking about school books, everything we ever were indoctrinated with from the very beginning, preschool books, programs for kids, they're all predominantly white. There's no room for that opportunity to feel like what you're seeing in your life is right. Like it's not really showcased in a way where it's okay that we can all go to the same church, go to the same salon. There's so many things where we're segregated. We work together, but we don't play together. We don't let our kids hang out together, and we definitely don't let them marry each other. And there's a problem with that. That's where I think all of this purging can lead to, is where we could really become the melting pot that America is meant to be, in the sense that we all can get along, whether or not we're blending lives and marriages and race doesn't matter. It's the matter of appreciating all the different tapestries that come together to make America great.
Make America great. Yeah. I don't love
that.
Again.
Not again. Yeah, like make America amazing.
Look,
it's not great. So that's what I'm saying.
Never okay. I hear you. I'm dual citizen, and in Canada. Okay. And in Canada,
Yeah.
You know, it was always a mosaic, not a melting pot. And I remember that. I remember when I moved to the States 29 years ago about the melting pot and everyone kind of melting into the same thing.
Yeah.
And I love, though, in Canada, it's like a mosaic and it's a beautiful tapestry type of thing in the end. But that's just kind of a vision. But I want to now, thank you for talking about that, by the way, because
My pleasure.
what I wanted to share is I'm Jewish. And so I did face anti-Semitism growing up, but again, I could hide behind my whiteness.
Right. And it's puzzling to me because I see so many anti-Semitism stuff happening now as well. Like it's not just racism against obviously brown and black people. And the way that this segregation has been is that we're isolating each other from each other instead of together kind of working. Because I mean, when Martin Luther King was marching, he had his Jewish brothers and sisters with him walking. And now everyone's walking together, but it's still a matter of I wish that we could join forces because there really isn't any other ethnic groups that have gone through as much as our genetic ancestors have gone through in the sense of with World War II or with slavery and so on with us. But
well, Martin Luther King, he actually spoke at my synagogue, many years ago. And but in terms of hiding, like I am ashamed to say there were times where someone would talk about Jews and I would be really nervous. And, when I was quite young and I would just kind of walk away because, I didn't want to admit that I was, but then I got stronger and I said, yes, I'm Jewish. And when I first moved to Chicago, I'll never forget. And if you're listening out there, I hope that you've changed your attitude. But I met this woman who we were friends. And it wasn't until, 2 months into our friendship that I said that I was Jewish. And she said, wow, I didn't know that Jews live in Canada. And then she even said to me, Camille, if you can believe it, she asked me about my horns. She wanted to know where on my head my horns were. So if you're not familiar, there is a stereotype of Jews having horns. And she wanted to feel my head to see where, because there'd be bumps apparently on my head for where my horns were. And that was it. I just said, see you later. You just don't know I couldn't educate her on it. And I just said, see you later. But that was kind of the harshest that I'd had for a long time. But I could hide behind my whiteness for at least 2 months. Right. And anyway, it's just an education. It's learning. It's, relating to each other and opening up and expanding and finding a new direction of really supporting each other and being compassionate and understanding, if we can, each other's experiences to move forward, right?
Mm-hmm. And, if you notice that your circles are kind of monochromatic, it's time to make some changes because I hate being the only person of color at events and I will leave. From now on, like I'm done. I'm at an age now where I'm just like, nope, I'm not going in there. I'm not going to be 1,000 questions later.
So now I want to read a couple quotes that I want to hear your reactions to. So this is actually from Michelle.
I'm still distracted by the horns idea, though. I'm like,
well,
she's probably a flat
happens.
earther too.
Pardon?
A flat earther, the people that think the world is flat.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes. I mean, there's people that have these beliefs. So if you're out there and you have these beliefs, do some fact checking. Don't go ask a person to feel their horns.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I had somebody ask my mom if she grew up in a teepee.
Oh.
In the 50s?
Oh, I've been asked if I grew up in an igloo.
In Canada.
Yeah. I mean, look, we can just.
Well, they called me a Nazi and when I first moved to the South because of my accent sounding so German. Yeah.
Right. Let's not judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Like, let's not look at and just make these assumptions. Like, enough already, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Michelle Obama, speaking of an incredible Black woman, she said, the only limit to the height of your achievements is the reach of your dreams and the willingness to work hard for them. How do you relate, or can you relate to that?
No, it's funny. My family always said this. I don't even remember if it was my grandmother. I remember hearing, I know it was my grandfather. My grandfather would always say this. He would say, if you can dream it, you could achieve it. And that's what that sounds like to me. But there's something about representation for kids, period, to see themselves. And it was such a big moment in history for us to be able to see a Black president, a Black first lady, and superhero, like just all of that. Seeing how my daughter kind of almost takes it for granted, like it's as if she's never lived a world where that didn't exist, and knowing that I did, and seeing that transition, it's like you really can become your wildest dreams if you work for it, or take those opportunities that come your way and fight for it.
And even though you mentioned before the podcast that you can't always spend the time with your daughter now because she's being at home, virtual school, she's seeing you live your dream. And I think that's the biggest lesson of strength and empowerment. And I think it's the biggest lesson. Okay, now another great woman, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So she said, so often in life, things you regard as an impediment turn out to be great, good fortune.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that. I've learned that, we make mistakes and you have to just pick up and move forward. I know I mentioned the conversation yesterday about that because on Jeff Pulver's The Conversation, that mistakes are happy accidents. And the moment where I really realized that, everything shifted for me. Do you find that too?
I do. So my mom's an artist, her artwork behind me. And that was always her thing with painting. She would say that it's like, there's no mistakes, there's no accidents. You just go with it. Granted, she's an abstract artist, so you can, but, so I always felt that in a way. And even it's funny because when I was younger, I was such a perfectionist, and because I grew up on set and I saw how much it cost if you made a mistake, and they had to do retakes. And I saw how my dad would be angered with his budgets if things didn't go exactly right. So I always felt like I had to be perfect on set. And with podcasting, I had that same kind of thing, or every career really I've ever had, I had that same, like I had to be the best at it, I had to do my best. And then things happen. You get fired for things you can't control, or something happened. The salon closes, goes out of business. There's so many things that can happen, even if you're doing your very best, that out of your control. And so being able to not just lay there in the failure, but learn from it and make yourself even better, even greater opportunities can come your way. It's
a learning curve, right? Everything. I mean, I know for me, I've realized so much on this podcast, and I hope the listeners are patient, because even looking at the earlier ones that I recorded until now, it's just certain things that I'm doing, I'm realizing kind of flow better. And, it's such a learning curve. Life is a learning curve, right? I mean,
people like to see the growth, right?
You told me that because I was scared, and I mentioned to you, I don't know, I feel like this isn't going to connect with the audience. And you said, don't worry, just be yourself.
No, people love to catch on. No, people love the idea of catching on to a rising star and being like, well, I knew her first, or this new hot podcast, you've heard of Goddess, great.
I knew her when she couldn't pronounce the guest names.
Okay. Yeah, that's another one. Well, so, and then speaking also of those impediments, I'm ADHD and dyslexic. And so when you add in all those elements too, as a quote impediment, it's not, because it helps me be able to do so many things at one time. It makes it easier for me to multitask, because I'm also ambidextrous, just to make things even more confusing and complicated for me.
Wow.
But so, there's different things that you think, I can't do this because I'm this, because I'm this. And maybe for general media, yes, for entertainment tonight, maybe my ability to keep looking at comments and still talk might not be the best thing, but for what we're doing, it works. People feel included into the conversation. I get to have fun. I get to use all my brain power at one time. Although, like you mentioned about misspelling names, when I'm reading and I'm trying to pay attention at the same time, sometimes it's harder for me to notice that I'm flipping words or mispronouncing it. So, but I'm like, love me or leave me.
Right. We're human.
Yeah.
My last quote for today
this
is by S.C. Lurie. Some days I am goddess. Some days I am wild child. And some days I am a fragile mess. Most days I am a bit of all three, but every day I am here trying. Do you feel like a goddess today, a wild child, or a fragile mess?
I feel like 35% of all of them.
No, and that's real. That's real.
Yeah, like it's by the minute, by the hour, like right now I feel like a goddess because I'm having a wonderful time conversating with you. But as soon as I get off and the real world hits back, I'll probably feel like a wild child running around trying to figure out what am I supposed to do next? What's going on now? Do you need lunch? What class are you in? Like there's a lot more traffic control tower work now.
And it's okay. It's okay to be the fragile mess later on too. I mean, we go through ups and downs and it's okay. And let's not put each other down about it. Let's give us some space. Don't be so hard on yourself. I've learned that over the years. And just take that time to comfort, eat that chocolate, have that glass of wine. Just don't have 5 glasses, right? And enjoy. Now, Camille, if our listeners, viewers want to hear you and get a hold of you, how can they do that?
The easiest way is just to go to my website, CamilleKauer.com. So CamilleKauer.
Great. And please do, because it's really, really fun. Lots of fun. And she's so pretty in pink.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with me and supporting each other, podcast to podcast, podcaster to podcaster.
Absolutely.
Woman to woman, goddess to goddess.
Absolutely. I think it's so important in this time because we're all globally experiencing the same thing, that it's a good time to help a neighbor, even if it's a virtual neighbor, like if it's someone else with the same mindset, why let location limit you? That's one of the things to take from this, is that you really can connect with anyone just based on a feeling. And so
I'm so happy that we met. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.
Up next, favorite things. Opening up to happiness and joy.
Welcome, goddesses, to Favorite Things with Camille Kauer. And this can be anything that brings you joy, that makes you feel happy. It's like an adult show and tell. So we're podcaster to podcaster today. And our podcasts, of course, are our favorite things, right?
Oh my gosh.
Because we're getting to reach lots of people and talk about things that we're passionate about. But one of my favorite things is actually, my husband and I have this ritual that wherever we go, wherever we travel, he picks me up. And now I pick him up. And this is why. This is our wedding portrait. And this moment was captured right after we were married. We ran outside the synagogue and the photographer said, pick her up. And he picked me up. And it was just such a joyous moment. So this is a picture when I finished my cancer treatment. And this is another picture of us after my cancer treatment, he picked me up. And then this is one of our trips in Europe. He picked me up. We have multiple pictures of him picking me up. But now we have pictures of me picking him up. And the funny thing is we joke around every year at our anniversary, we do the pickup pose for the camera. Yeah. And we say to each other, we will pick each other up physically until we can no longer. And then we'll pick each other up spiritually. Oh, isn't that sweet?
You guys are a Hallmark movie. I love it. So sweet and genuine.
We have our fights. Are you kidding me? There's times when I pick them up and drop them. No, we're not all like, Pollyanna over here. But no,
what marriages, really?
I mean, what marriages? But we definitely have that, and it's kind of fun to do that. If you don't have a little signature move, like it's fun to do that in your life, just to kind of everywhere you go do something fun. So let's talk to you about your favorite.
Okay. So, earlier I was talking about how Diana Ross is my everything. Well, gosh, has it already been 2 years? No, almost 2 years ago, my best friend was invited to perform for Diana Ross's 75th birthday party. He was able to get a +1, and he called me and asked me if I would be his +1. Immediately started like ugly crying because I was like, I'm a mom. How can I just go in the middle of March to a party in LA. I call my husband right after I talk to him, still crying, mind you. And he's like, of course you got to go. I thought you were in an accident or something. You know, like he was happy to know he only had to pay some money to send me somewhere for a couple of days during Super Bowl weekend, and he can have a fun time without me and drinking.
Right.
So I went. Well, my mom, the artist, she made me special earrings just for the event. And so I wore these.
What are they made out of, to describe
they're made
to
out
the
of paper.
listeners? So they're paper drop earrings.
Yes, podcast. Sorry. So they're paper made earrings that have this beautiful abstract, mainly pink, because she knows my color is pink, to go with my evening dress that I wore that night. So I had something long and dangly and fit the occasion because it was diamond furs and feathers or something like that was the theme. And it was amazing. It was the most amazing night. So these are my lucky earrings that anytime, maybe if I'm feeling a little sad or want a little pick me up, I'll wear these, especially on the show, because it's like I'll see my reflection with the earrings on and just feel like a goddess again, because I'm Diana Ross and I have her picture on the other side of my camera as well. So she's always
she is going to contact you. You're going to manifest that. I know it. Diana, if you are listening, we want you on Camille's podcast. And I want to meet you too, because you are a goddess.
I've been so close. I've met her daughter. And even at that event, I met a few people, but not her. I got to meet Jessie Williams. That was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Got a selfie
and your mom's artwork is beautiful. Does she sell it or does she?
She does. She does.
So what's her name? Let's plug her a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Okay. OliviaGatewood.com, or you can follow her on Instagram, Olivia Gatewood Art. And it's Gatewood with an E, because there's also Olivia Gatewood without an E, who is a very well-known poet as well. So
okay, and does she make jewelry? Does your mom make jewelry, like the earrings?
She does. So she just started making the earrings when she went through breast cancer, because she was limited mobility for a while after having her surgeries and so on. So this was her way to still keep creating. And when I started my previous show, she was like, oh, it's some way that you always have something different and feel glamorous. And because, stay-at-home moms, we don't buy for ourselves the latest fashion sometimes, and you get in a rut. So having like really fancy, I always keep them near me. So like she's made me these really cool like animal print ones so I can look really fancy, and they're like long ones or more classic ones, but you're never fully dressed without a smile or a pair of earrings. And so
I want her to make me my logo. I want her to make me the goddess earrings. Can she do that?
No, I don't know. You'll have to, I think there's a way that she could.
Okay. I'm gonna reach out. Yeah. I love it. Love it.
Yeah. Cause she's also making like these eye pillows lately. See, this is kind of a exclusive, where you can heat them up, or you can even have them chilled. So it's great if you have like dry eye or allergies. I suffer with allergies, so my eyes will swell up a lot if I cry or I have allergies. So we're making these satin pink ones just for me for eSpot.
Oh, love it. And can the listeners and viewers go to your website if they want to order those? They're interested in those?
They're still in
process. Okay.
Yeah, she's still making a bunch of them for me, but that's coming soon.
Well, we need that, especially when we're inside and at the end of a long day. When we're that fragile, what do you call it? That fragile mess of a goddess.
Staring at Zooms all day too, After a while, you're tired of looking at lights.
I know, exactly. Well, Camille, it's been such a pleasure. I really appreciate your time and all of your great advice, especially just about leaping, just doing it and feeling that connection. I appreciate our conversation about social injustice, and thank you for clarifying that for me, because it's so true. And enjoy your day, and thank you for being a grateful goddess today in pink.
Well, thank you also for just wanting to have these conversations, because they are difficult, and it is scary to be so transparent and share even your own experiences of what you went through. And I'm just still dumbfounded about the horns thing. I just can't imagine somebody feeling comfortable enough to even ask a question like that. I'm kind of glad she did ask, so she learned really quickly that it's wrong, and no, that doesn't really a thing. But at the same time, I hope she ran into someone that's not as nice as you that might have said it to her in a way where she really got it.
I was tempted to let her feel my head, but I just said, no, I don't have them and we don't have them. And yes, Jews live in Canada. And no, I did not grow up in an igloo. So that's it. But, I moved on. So hopefully she learned. And if she's listening out there, she's, more educated about everything and everyone. So
I'm sure she's made a 180. Let's hope that.
Yes, let's hope so. So thank you again.
Unleashed your inner goddess yet? Thanks for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses. We invite you to visit our website, www.gratefulgoddesses.com, to access today's show notes as well as other helpful resources. Don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, stay strong and empowered to be a grateful goddess.